China over everything else?
Gosh.
Where's your passion?
I've always loved history. I've always loved drawing, you know, so the combination of those two things. And as a child, I think I was about 8 years old, and I thought, I want to do that job. And it was, you know, the time when there were all those BBC costume dramas that I was completely obsessed with. And I used to make period clothes for my Barbie dolls. And I mean, it's kind of inevitable that I've ended up doing what I do. I've been a monomaniac about it, actually. I wasn't sidetracked. I sort of knew that's what I want to do, and here I am doing it and still enjoying it.
With Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, were you given an initial briefing of the look of the set, and were you given various images to maybe look at that you could follow?
I will start conceiving of how I see a film from the first time I read a script, which is obviously before I'm even interviewed for the job.
No.
And I tend to, if I don't have a very strong idea straight away of what I think it should look like, it's not the right film to be doing,
no, of course.
if that makes
sense. You've got
sense.
an initial attraction to the script, and you can see things.
And this really appealed to me. I mean, this material, I desperately want. I think it's fair to say I've never wanted to get a job as much as this one. Yeah,
what was
really.
it that appealed to you so much?
I loved Let the Right One In. I came out of the cinema completely blown away by it on every level, and I just remember saying, this guy I really, really, really want to work with. And you know, luckily for me, he picked me to do the job, which is great, which was fantastic.
The colour palette for Tinker Tailor is so like strong and deliberate. Yeah. What was the thinking behind?
I think it comes very naturally from the subject matter. I think it's almost wrong if it's contrived. In this case, if you gather the visual references together, you put them on the wall, the colour palette is there, it's under your nose. The kind of spaces you're looking at, the kind of things you're looking at.
Yeah.
And you're editing as you're putting together, as you're pulling together references, you're naturally editing stuff that feel right or doesn't feel right. And you know, and often the colours that you're using is to do with that. It's all about the world you're creating. I mean, you know, it would have been completely ridiculous if Tinker Tailor was, you know, I don't know, blue or red or whatever. It is this dusty, smoky 70s world where
all the muted colours. I mean, I love all that.
Oh, anyway, but we had some really punchy, strong colours
like
in
the
there as well.
And
even
the blues were quite.
Oh no, we weren't afraid of colour. So there was this
really
sort of overall palette of sludge, and then every now and again a good old punch, you know, whether that was a bus going by and suddenly a flash of red, or if it was, you know, Connie had a particularly bright orange bedspread, you know, so it was, we were not afraid of using colour in there.
No, it was really strong.
I'm interested in you've got your portfolios and bits and pieces, maybe how you start out and like the development process you take.
Well, you start at the very early stages. First thing you do is the director and I, along with the location team, start looking at locations.
Right.
And,
so you're working very closely with locations, obviously.
Yeah. We'll have between us. We'll have a brief, and then they will show photographs, and from there you go and start looking at the places, and between us we sort of cook up this world. And then I will go away and start doing sketches, and I still, in a very old-fashioned way, draw with pencil. This was actually for a CGI shot that appears in the film. The exterior of MI6 is a building that exists, and we stretched it and plonked this brutalist block in the middle. The building around the edge is somewhere that is right across the road from where I did my Saturday yoga class. And
you're looking out the window at it all the
time. I know, when I did my interview, I already knew where MI6 was. I knew that was MI6, and Thomas loved it, and that became MI6. He had this very strong idea, before I started, that this secret service, this MI6 world, was like a building within another building. So the central building, it was hidden within the outer core. And he had this notion of this brutalist lump stuck in something that to the outside world looks like sort of, I don't know, bureaucratic Edwardian building. This was where Prideaux is imprisoned.
Yes.
There was this tiny little block, and I did this sketch with these sort of Auschwitz-like posts. And Thomas laughed. I remember him chortling when I showed him this drawing. He'd say, "Ah, yes, Auschwitz." The hut was the location,
Yes.
and then we built
You built it.
around it.
So are these places, do you go out and purposely find these places, or are they from maybe if you've been somewhere before you think, oh, that could work for this? Do you always relate?
Oh no,
Yeah.
it's a mixture.
You can just,
No. If you know, I had been to Budapest once in my life before,
Yeah.
so you know, you're relying on
You know.
people to show you places.
No, of course.
And I think it's important when you're doing a film like this, where you don't have huge amounts of resources, that you stay open and you let locations inspire you.
Did you draw on any personal experiences?
Oh God, yeah, everything and anything. We did draw on our memory. I mean, you know, Thomas came to London for the first time, I think, in the mid-70s, and we had our memories of what that London was like, and we talked about it and laughed about it, you know, how terrible the food was, and, you know, the Wimpy bar being something that as kids we really relished. It was a big treat to get a Wimpy, and so we had to get that into the film. But it's so many different things that you know, pull together the visuals for. And it's really interesting because I do so much visual research, and I put these images all up on the wall. It's like wallpaper from floor to ceiling. And once you've done that, the color palette just jumps out at you. It's quite extraordinary because as you're making those choices of what images are interesting and which ones aren't, you're editing it anyway. And when you put everything on the wall, you really see it. And it really gives you a sense for the film. And it's a very nice way of communicating that to everyone else in the production, who are maybe not so visual. So, you know, people from different departments can come in and, oh, okay, this is what it's going to look like. Also, my background, my father's half Montenegrin and half Russian, and my mother is Czech. So as a kid, we used to go on holidays behind the Iron Curtain.
Yeah.
And I had really, really vivid memories of what that, you know, a world that's gone. It just doesn't exist. And that's one of the things that appealed to me hugely. When I read the script, and actually in the Le Carré, it's set in Czechoslovakia for budgetary reasons. I think it just turned out to be slightly cheaper to be shooting in Budapest. It became Hungary. And when I went to my interview, I had a massive stuff of photographs of Czechoslovakia at the time, and Thomas didn't have the heart to tell me that it had already moved to Budapest.
Especially with period films, how closely do you work with like set dressing and props?
Oh, incredibly closely. It's absolutely the closest relationship. Tatiana, who is, I think the film with Tinker was our 12th film together.
Wow.
So you can imagine, you
So
know,
there's like a
by then
relationship there
it's telepathy almost. You know, we have very compatible tastes and that's why we've done so many films together. You know, it just really works, and that relationship is vital. And I'm very involved in that whole thing because to me the set dressing is such an important part of any film. And you know, Tat and I have a kind of weird, we have very, very oddly, well, not oddly considering what we do, very, very similar taste, so much so that we'll turn up to work both dressed identical. And in fact, I had to phone, you know, we had to phone each other, what are you wearing to the BAFTAs, in case we didn't come kind of, you know, dressed exactly the same.
Was there one moment for you that you thought was sort of the proudest, sort of the best, what really shouted at you as being capturing that moment?
Oh God, on this film there were so many things that I kind of thought, yes, this is good, this works. The Istanbul Hotel, where Thomas wanted to see literally from one window across the road into a building with each of these spaces being contiguous, so you can actually see her move from one room to the next, to the next, to the next. You know, and he was the one who spotted this fantastic brutalist building in Aldwych. So we did this mad thing, which was shoot the Istanbul hotel room. I built all those rooms behind that elevation, and then Ricky Tarr is across the road, actually in Istanbul, and then we put Istanbul in post off to one side, got rid of the London buses and put in some Turkish traffic. This was a really I can honestly say this was one of the most kind of stimulating creatively productions I've ever worked on.
How many sets and locations were there? It seems to be quite a
Set numbers
lot.
on Tinker Tailor, I can tell
Yeah.
you exactly 110.
Wow.
Yeah, that's 110 different spaces. It's a lot.
Yeah. Over how long was that? How long did you?
Oh God, I can't remember
Yeah.
now. We probably had about 12 weeks prep,
Oh, God.
and in that, and the Budapest bit of the shoot was in our pre-production
Yeah.
period.
Wow.
So take another week out of that, and the prep time in Budapest, about 10 weeks. Lot of spaces, and
Yeah.
that's the amazing thing, that you create all these worlds in that incredibly short period of
Yeah.
time. So it goes from typed out words on a white page, and 10 weeks later, there are all these worlds that you've created.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy, accelerated, manic, but fun.
Do you normally find that your first initial ideas are maybe the best, and you always go back to
It's
those?
really interesting how I tend to keep all my visual references, and you look back on them, and it's interesting how,
How similar the final outcome
yeah,
is to the
quite
first.
often.
Yeah.
It's you don't diverge or go off on. I mean, also by doing that, by providing so much visual information at
Yeah.
an interview stage, slightly putting my head on the block, because the director's going to like it or not like it.
Of course, yeah.
And it means I'll get the job or not get the job. But in a way, I think it's better, because then at least.
You both
Do you know what I mean?
exactly where you're going. Yeah.
The film I've just started is Ralph Fiennes' Invisible Woman. And I went to the interview. I had so many books that I had to come with a suitcase to the interview. It's a bit silly, but I got the job anyway. So,
No.
but
Just try and get as much as you can get across to
So it's communication. Because actually, if you're talking about aesthetics and you're talking about the look of a film, it's much easier to actually have an example. Because it's all talking aesthetics can just be hot air. It's much easier to say, look, these are the colours. This is what I'm imagining. This shows you the atmosphere.
Is there any particular genre of film that you haven't maybe covered for designing, that you'd maybe like to take and maybe reinvent? Or
Oh, I've
that
never.
sort of
I mean,
thing?
I do like doing period films.
You do like period?
Yeah, I do. I love it. I love that idea of recreating a world that no longer exists. I've never done anything set in the future.
How would you feel about that?
I don't know. It would depend entirely on the script. I'm always script driven. That it has to be.
So as soon
It
as
has to
if
be.
you like the script, that's a strong point that you're taking on.
Yeah, and you might get a period film that you read a script for and you come away kind of going, God, I don't know what that's
I
supposed to
can do
look
it.
like.
Yeah.
Or you read something and it just engages one's imagination.
What advice could you give to us for
What
starting
advice?
out and going into the art
Oh,
department
gosh.
and in general?
What advice? I think you need to be really passionate about it. I think that is so important, and I think grasp every opportunity. That's the other
Yeah.
thing, because I think you will go through what you're doing at the film school is really exciting, and you're doing all this creative stuff, and suddenly you've got a job in an art department where you will be making tea for
Yeah.
people, and that's very bloody boring. But the thing is that if just take every opportunity, don't be sniffy about anything, just do it.
Yeah.
Get your hands dirty, because I know, I really mean this. When I employ somebody in the art department, I know at the end of the first week who's going to carry on
Yeah.
and who isn't.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main thing.